Hey everybody, this is In the Mix with Sister Johnny, and I'm really excited because today I have an expert guest that is here with us. She's actually going to help us today to speak truth and give us some pointers and techniques on how to deal with all of the emotions that we are experiencing right now. From being quarantined from this pandemic, from people dealing with homeschooling their kids, um, and just recently, what's going on with uh, the killing of an innocent man that we all saw on television. We all saw it televised. And so she's going to help to not bring solace, but hopefully help us to have some techniques that will help us again to streamline our emotions in a healthy way, if that makes sense. So she's going to come on the show. She's here now. I'm going to give you a little quick background on her. Her bio, her full bio is going to be down in the description box below. So I'm not going to go over all of it. But just to let you know, her name is Dr. Terri Thompson. She's a clinical psychologist. She also is licensed with the California Board of Psychology. Her training and experience is massive. She has 18 years of experience. She also received her training at Stanford University, School of Medicine, Department of Psychiatry and Behavior Medicine, the Division of Child Psychiatry and Child Development, Stanford University School of Medicine, and the Children's Hospital Research Center, Oakland, otherwise known as UCSF, Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland. Is a Christian. She is a believer, and she also published a book. It is a self-help mood therapy handbook called Be Happy, Let God Renew the Attitude of Your Mind. And that information is going to be down below, so go ahead and support her. Without further delay, I want to welcome Dr. Terri Thompson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I'm very glad to be here. And I am glad to be able to help as much as I can. That is my role. That is my God-given purpose. And so I am here to do that today. And I do want to provide some sort of uplifting spiritual guidance through this time. And it is a difficult time.
Right. So much going on right now in America. I mean, from the pandemic, which is worldwide with the coronavirus, the world has been shut down, and the quarantine has obviously had all of us indoors. Some states and or cities are beginning to slowly open up, but there's a such thing as cabin fever where people are just stretched. They're stretched, they're stressed, and their emotions are already all over the place. Compiling that on top of the recent police brutality and or murder, killing that we saw, all of us witness, of a Black man, Dr. Thompson, I don't even know what your thoughts are. Can you speak to any of this to help us?
I hope I can speak to helping, and that is something I really hope I can sort of impart today, in that this is traumatic. This incident is very traumatic, and trauma affects every individual, and trauma affects every individual differently. So we can step back and we can say, yes, we've been in a pandemic, we've been sheltering in. That causes stress. And how we therapists help people through that part is based on your circumstances, based on your situation, individually, what can you do to eliminate that stress? Okay, so let's talk about that first, and then I will talk about the trauma of what happened to my brother, George Floyd. Okay, so let's step back. When sheltering in took place, people's lives were disrupted. Okay, a lot of individuals hopefully had some sort of availability to work from home and still have income. But what we are seeing in the United States causes even those individuals to be distressed about what's happening to my other brothers and sisters who don't have jobs, who are struggling to put food on the table, right? That's stress, okay? That's when we know we have to look to support systems. If you're in a family environment, you have a husband, a wife, you have a partner, whatever, that's the time, if you're sheltering in together, to really complement each other. You both have different personalities. You may have one thing that you're an expert at in the household. The other person has their expertise. Communication is key. Constant communication, talking about differences, not getting angry, not holding things in till you explode. Communication has to stay constant. That is difficult. If you have a very good relationship with that person, you've known them for a long time, you know each other's habits, you know all of that, that's great. However, maybe this particular time brings out those differences that you really don't like. And that's where you really have to step back and you really have to organize yourself. The key to everybody sheltering in is a routine. Having a routine on a daily basis. Those that are working from home, it is so important to get up and act like you're going to work. Dress, take a shower, dress, sit in front of the computer, have your coffee, your breakfast, separate that place where you're going to work from the activity of the other household. That's important, okay? If you have kids, that's compounded. It is difficult, okay? If you have teenagers, it may not be so difficult because they're independent. You can tell them, okay, this is what we're gonna do today. I have to work, your dad has to work, or if you're a single mother, I have to work. Can you, do your homework at the kitchen table? We're separated, or you're in your room. Set those boundaries. Okay. And respect each other's boundaries. If you set them ahead of time and you set that routine on a weekly basis, you know that. Kids really produce well when they have a schedule. And that's evident when your kids go to school. So if you have kids that are in daycare or elementary school, middle school, they have a daily routine. You need to keep that daily routine, okay? So they know what's happening. That will benefit them. That will keep them less stressed. That's important, okay? Having a newborn baby, that's even different, okay? You need to give yourself some grace here. If you have a newborn, you can't be perfect. You have to reach out. You have to reach out to others. Single people, you have to reach out to others. If you're even with couples, you have to reach out to others. Don't forget the support you had before sheltering in. If you need to use Zoom, if you need to use FaceTime, if you need to just text, if you need to get on the phone, you stay connected. That is your support, okay? Now that things are lifting, you go for walks, you go out, you do that as a family. Family time is still important. You still maintain those traditions, those cultural things you do. So for example, if it's as a family, Friday night is game night or pizza night, you do that, okay? Come Sunday, if that was the day you went to church and Sunday school, you do that. You do that on Zoom, you do it. If you can't, your church doesn't have Zoom, then, maybe you have little Bible stories you can read to your kids. Keep things constant, keep them calm, stay present with your kids, especially the little ones. Every little kid has their own personality. Every little kid is unique. Nurture that unique personality, okay? All that I'm saying can be very overwhelming, right?
Well, that's why I had a follow-up question to that was, I have a friend that has a child that's entering into kindergarten, a child that's entering into high school, and a child that just graduated that's entering into college. With all of that going on, she's married, she's working from home, she's cooking, she's doing all of that. And she actually told me, she says, because I asked her, well, what do you do to get a bereave and get away? And she said she actually just goes to Target. But I mean, I don't know if you have someone in that kind of scenario, are you still saying to keep the routine?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So that's where family meetings are important. We need to sit down as a family and do a schedule for each one. Okay. And she needs to have a schedule for herself. In that schedule, she needs to have some me time. Okay. That does not go by the wayside. Going to Target, and I've heard a lot of people were doing that. They were going out just to get out. I just need to get out. I need to go into the stores. And where stores were saying, no, you need to stay home if this is not a good thing. So you have to be inventive. Think of things, what can I do for myself in this me time? Can I go in my room? Can I meditate? Can I do yoga? Can I just read a book for 15 minutes? Can I just sit and have some essence of candles? Okay. Can I take a walk by myself? Or can the whole family take a walk together? That's what we call de-stressing. You need to do that at least 15 minutes a day for self.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Every day. So think about it. If you were a person that commuted to work, your distress time usually was on my way to work. I listened to music, I relaxed till I got to work. And then my commute home, I relaxed, I listened to music. And then I went into the house. Well, you don't have that commute time, but you have to make it up. You have to build it in, or people will get very stressed out and get overwhelmed. Mindfulness is what we call it. You have to be mindful of yourself. You have to be mindful of what's going to trigger you and not get to the point where you are triggered. Okay. If you have a toddler in the house, that toddler is probably ruling the house right now. Is that a trigger for you? Okay. What can I do? How can I set some boundaries here? And if you have a teenager or older kids, they are very helpful, especially if you're a single mom or your partner is there. You have to really tag team. You have to develop that communication. You have to understand, this is my personality, this is your personality, these are the kids' personalities. As a family, how are we going to do this together? As a family. Okay. Family is key. And especially if you have extended family available, put them on Zoom and have somebody like a great aunt or grandmother, if you can do that, have them watch that toddler and play with that toddler by Zoom. Anything. You have to get creative and inventive. And we have to think about, we're really blessed at this time. God has blessed us with this technique. Can you imagine not having this? We have to think about the positives. The positives always outweigh the negative, and God is always there. He is there, and you have to really stay connected to your Savior, the person that gives you grace and mercy. He is always there. Yes. He is in the midst. He's still doing his work, even during all this stuff. It's unimaginable, but he's still there. He's still doing his work.
Okay. Well, what would you say about parents that have these kids, and like, for example, the kids that are graduating, they worked really hard. I personally know a mother who has a son. He's an honor roll student. He worked really, really hard. And he's going to college, but he wasn't able, just like so many others, were not able to walk that stage. So, they're dealing with that. They're also dealing with the fact that they can't interact with their friends, because we know during that adolescent teenage year, it's all about their friends, right? So they're not able to have that interaction. Now, as again, states are beginning to open up, but But now we also have this racial tension that's happening too, that is affecting our African American men and children, our women, our young children. What technique or what advice can you render for
Okay.
someone in this situation?
First, let me talk about the ceremonies. Transitions, graduations are rites of passage, and we always want to celebrate that. We always want to celebrate that. And we're telling our kids right now and our parents, you still celebrate. You have to celebrate this. And a lot of people are doing various things to make sure their kid is honored at this moment in time. So again, what does she think would be great for her son to see? It is for her family on Zoom to celebrate him.
Mm-hmm.
And let him know, this is what I enjoy about you, this is what I like about you. Have him put on his cap and gown, have him be celebrated, however you want to do that. Do you want to have a party by Zoom? Do you want to have his friends enjoy him by Zoom? I've watched a lot of different types of ceremonies on the news where parents are having friends drive by in their cars, families drive by in their cars and celebrate these kids while they're in their cap and gown, just honking horns, anything like that. I've seen parents put their kids on websites, Facebook, so people can write a note and honor them and celebrate them. This is something that you could really say, all right, it was the year 2020, which is never going to come again. It was a year for my graduation, which is never going to come again. What am I going to remember from this that's really positive? Okay. I got through it. I'm on the other side of it. I'm healthy and I celebrate it and I have pictures. So when that teenager or that senior goes to college or finally gets to college, guess what? They're going to have on their wall pictures of how they graduated. It was different, and it's going to be different for everybody. But have something. You have to do something. If it's just she and him, a cake, anything to celebrate him, however you want to do that. And if he has those friends, they want to celebrate him too. Just like they want to be celebrated. And maybe all of them get together and they have one big party over Zoom together.
And I just want to put a disclaimer out. She's definitely celebrating her son, but I'm just, it's so many people that's just like, oh my goodness, what do we do? So I just wanted to, and then all this other stuff that's going on. So are really feeling the stress too.
Right. And stress is something that we all feel, and it's not a bad thing. Stress is sort of a little bit of anxiety, and sometimes it can be a little bit of motivator. What we get concerned about is when it's too much anxiety. Okay. When there's too much of what ifs, I'm scared, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm afraid. That's not a good thing. Okay. The reality is we know what we can do to control our safety. We've been told that by the scientists. This is what you do to make sure you don't get sick. Everybody needs to do that. Then we know there are things that are not in our control, and that's what gives us anxiety. I can't control this. I have to shelter in. I want to have some control. Well, there's a lot of things we can't control. And that's what we talk to our teenager about. There's going to be a lot of things in life that you will not be able to control. So you control what you can do. You do what you can do, and that's what God expects. God has given us the knowledge and the talent and the expertise to know this is what I can do to control things for me and my family and to keep them safe.
Okay, got it. So that leads me to this question about coping with loneliness. Because I hear you say, okay, you reach out to your tribe via Zoom or any means necessary with your family so you can stay in touch. But what about the people that don't have families? And what about the senior citizens? A lot of times when they go to their doctor's office, that's their interaction, their social interaction. And now they're not. Even with the states opening up, this particular group is still quarantined. And so there's loneliness that they're feeling.
Okay.
But can you speak to that?
Okay. So loneliness is something that a lot of people will experience at some point in their lifetime. And for singles, it could be some point in a day, or they may not feel it for a while. And for young singles, if you are not a senior citizen and you're not in a home by yourself, or you're not in a nursing home, and you're young, you're vibrant, the expectation is, what can you do for others right now? Okay. Not so much looking into self and what I don't have or what I can't do. What can I do for somebody else? Okay. And your churches know those people. They know those seniors who are lonely, who are afraid to go out grocery shopping, who are afraid to do anything. Call your church, say, what can I do to help?
And
Okay.
if you don't have a church,
Any
then
church will accept you.
okay.
Right? Any church will accept your call.
Okay.
Any nonprofit organization will accept your call right now. Okay.
Okay.
And they're open with open arms. They're like, yes, we have stuff you can do.
So
Okay.
volunteering, service.
Volunteering your service. The other thing that a lot of times singles forget is, like, at this time, what I can do stuff for others. Maybe there's something I need to do for myself. Maybe there's some growth that I need to be thinking about for myself. You know, there's a lot. I mean, we change as we grow. We don't stay the same. And if we need to grow in a certain area of our lives, that's God's expectation also.
Wow, that was good. Service. Can't forget that. That'll definitely take care of that loneliness.
Yes.
Okay. And for the senior citizens, if you're single and you're volunteering your time and your service to go and help the senior citizens, then they have that social interaction, and then they don't have the loneliness. Wow.
Right.
That's incredible. Now, do you think that people can develop depression during this quarantine time?
Definitely depression and anxiety. Most of the time when people come in to see us and they say, oh, my kid's depressed, we talk to the kid, or someone seeing an adult, they say, I'm depressed. It's like, well, usually depression and anxiety go hand in hand. Okay, because you get anxious. For example, you're anxious because I don't have a job. I don't have income. Okay, I'm anxious. And then you get depressed because what am I going to do about it? I don't feel like there's anything I can do. I feel hopeless. Okay. So it starts a cycle, and individuals can get deeper and deeper into that. And what we look for are changes. People can look for changes in their little ones. They're looking for changes in their teenagers. So teenagers and little kids exhibit their depression most of the time with irritability. Teenagers become very irritable and angry. And if that's not the norm for your kid, then that's a sign. If they're withdrawing into their room unusually, and that's not the norm, that's a sign. And so you really want to draw them out and try to talk with them about what are their concerns right now.
Okay.
And especially talking to them is important, because you want to be sure they're not having any thoughts of getting into real depression where it becomes suicidal ideation. Okay. And so parents have to be mindful and watch their kids. Be present with your kids. The little ones will also act out. Okay. So you may see toddlers are going to be toddlers, but you do see little ones like 8, 9, 10. They may start getting a little bit irritable. Okay. And that is a sign that something's amiss with them.
Okay. Now, what about as an adult? What are some signs you can look for? If I have friends or I've had family members that they've never dealt with depression before, and now I'm noticing maybe they are withdrawn. Is that a sign too?
Yes,
Okay.
withdrawing from pleasurable activities. Okay. You have a friend or family member that you know is always very lively,
Mm-hmm.
always talking to their friends, always doing something. And now that they're sheltering in, you haven't heard from them. What's
Okay.
going on? Okay. I haven't heard from you, or I've called you and you haven't called me back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unusual behavior. Looking for any signs in an adult that's unusual behavior.
Okay.
That's where we need to support each other. Okay?
Okay.
When you have friends and you see something different about them, that's the time to keep reaching out and don't stop. Okay.
Okay.
Reaching out to people also helps you. When you reach out to someone, believe it or not, that makes you feel better. I'm helping this person and I'm concerned about them, but when they answer the phone, you're relieved and you're talking. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, now we're both better, right?
Okay.
That's support. We got to have that village. We still got to have it.
You got to have that village. And then that goes into people that have succumbed to the coronavirus. So
Mm.
people have lost loved ones to the virus during this quarantine, and they haven't had the proper ceremony, funeral service for their loved ones. Um, so they're dealing with, I don't want to say survival guilt, but they just feel like they wish they could have done more and they couldn't. So they're grieving because they lost their loved one, but then they couldn't bury them or give them the proper burial, and they're holding all that in. What can they do to begin the process of healing?
The most important thing is not to go down that road of I could have, I would have, I should have.
Okay.
Okay. That's what we as therapists call negative thoughts,
A negative.
period. Unhelpful. Then it doesn't help.
Something that people do feel?
People are encountering that
Okay.
across the nation, across the world. Remember, this is a worldly pandemic. So people have their cultural ceremonies
Mm-hmm.
for individuals who pass. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a cultural thing. And they have things that they've always done and they can't do right now. And then there are individuals that do feel guilty, and there are individuals that feel helpless.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I didn't get to say goodbye. I wish I could have. I wish I could have been able to. And that's what's not helpful. That's what's out of your control, right? I could not control that. I wanted to. I wanted to be there. And now I want to have a ceremony, but I can't. It's out of my control. There should be no guilt there. Remember, when things are not in your control, you do what you can do. And you do what you can do by saying, how do we do this as a family? Do we have a ceremony? Do I do an individual ceremony for myself? Acknowledge my loved one, acknowledge why, the significance they made in this world, how I feel I miss them, I miss the things that they did. That's what we do when we have those ceremonies. You can still have those ceremonies. You can have them by yourself, or you can have them as a group on Zoom. You can still do that. Or you can plan for a future ceremony. Okay. You
Mm-hmm.
can say, okay, as a family, when this thing is over, we're going to set a date and we're going to all do this together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's future forward thinking. And we all need to be in that phase right now. Future forward thinking.
Future
And
forward thinking. Okay.
that means we're going to come out. It's going to be a day where it's going to be different, but we're going to come out. And what do we want to do when we
Mm-hmm.
can do it? Or what do we want to do now to honor that person?
Mm-hmm. Okay. This is another question I want to go into. As the states are opening up, there's still this feeling of uncertainty that a lot of people have. Is that a normal feeling to have? To just still, even people that are going back to work, they still have this sense of uncertainty and anxiety. Is that normal?
It's normal. And the reason it's normal is because we really, we're looking to the scientists to tell us what we can do. And the uncertainty comes from the fact that the scientists are looking at this virus and they're finding out something new, it seems like every week. Every week. It's like, okay. And they are acknowledging that. They are acknowledging this is new, we're still studying it, and we want to give you the best information we can. Well, yes, that leaves uncertainty. It leaves us wondering, well, if they're trying to figure this out and they're giving me guidance, I'm doing what I can do, is that enough? And that will give people anxiety and uncertainty. But remember, you do what the scientists say, that gives you control, reduce your anxiety, and you move forward, okay? You make sure you're safe. You make sure your family's safe, you make sure your kids are safe. I'm telling you, I started telling my family in Texas and Georgia to wear their masks before their states told them to wear their masks. And that's because I was listening to the science. It's like, you listen to the science. Okay. And that's what you do for your family, and that's what you do for yourself. And you don't say, what if? You just say, I'm going to do what's safe right now. And we're hoping, everybody's hoping that the science gets it right.
So what about, as a Christian, as a believer, the church leadership is, I think they're split on whether to open the church building up and let people come back in, congregants, or to close them. What are your thoughts about that?
I am a scientist.
Okay.
And I am going to listen to the science. And the scientists have said it's really risky to open your church to a whole congregation. And if you're going to do that, these are the guidelines. And the main guideline is no choir, right? Can't have a choir. Now, most of your Black churches, that's what we thrive on, our choir, our singing, right? And if you can't do that, that kind of hinders your worship. And then you have to stay 6 feet apart. That means everybody can't come in, right? Most of the pastors and our pastors they're at the point where they're listening to the science and they want to keep everybody safe. And they want everybody to be able to come back in at the same time. Then you have those pastors, they are not listening to the science and they believe that they just need to open up. Well, in my heart, I know Jesus is in my heart. I know I can have church anywhere I want to. And we don't have to be in the church for God to hear us. He has never said that. It's a place of gathering. It's a place of fellowship. And Jesus is the church. And he's in heaven. And he hears your prayers. He sees everything you do. He has not left us. He loves us. He is here forever. And so when we gather on Zoom or when we gather one-on-one or we're on the phone, God is in our midst.
Okay. And that's where I wanted to go. And you answered that question. I was leading into, what about the Christian believers that say, well, this is a time to allow your faith to arise and trust God. I've even had people say, I don't have to have a mask on. I believe God will protect me. So that's why, is that kind of like throwing caution to the wind, or does that minimize your faith because you're listening to the scientists?
Well, think about it this way. Think about it this way. Who gave the scientists their knowledge? God. Right? So when Jesus was tempted by Satan, he was tempted. And Jesus said, no, I'm going to listen to the word of my Father. And the Word of God says, you need to listen to authority sometimes. I am the ultimate authority, but I gave the scientists their knowledge, okay? And so, for example, if you say, if the doctor tells you, okay, you need to do this, you need to take this medicine, you need to, for diabetes, you need to do that. And some people will say, no, I'm going to trust God. Well, when you get to heaven, don't ask God why you're there. He's going to tell you, I sent you the doctor. I gave the doctor the medicine to give to you, to keep you on earth. And you didn't honor that.
Okay.
We have to honor what God has given us. God has provided for us. And his scientists are the individuals that he has told, this is what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are children of God, we need to listen. Now, I don't think God will tell anybody to throw caution to the wind and say, no, you don't take that medicine. I'm going to heal you. And sometimes you take the medicine and he doesn't heal you. Sometimes you take the medicine and he heals you. That's God's authority.
Mm.
He is sovereign. God is sovereign. We don't know the future. He knows the day and the time we're supposed to be in heaven. Only he knows that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that. So what do? We live each day to the best of our knowledge, and we know we have 24 hours in a day, and we do that by glorifying God each day.
All right. Well, that's going to have me segue into this question. So, faith, as a woman of faith, some people are saying they're tired of praying. And these are people that believe in God. I'm tired of praying about it and walking around with signs saying, hey, Black Lives Matter. What are your thoughts about that when it comes down to your faith and what's actually happening to Black people, African American people in this nation surrounding racism? Like what do you, I mean, what do you say to that? Like what are some techniques we can use to help us to say, hey, we're exercising our faith. We know that sin is in the world. We know that evil is here. How do we make sense of this? Because a lot of people right now, even people I know, they are like, Johnny, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. So what do you say?
And that's a real thing. That is a very real thing to get tired, to be weary, to feel burdened. But what I say to people, and and hearing that from you brings tears to my eyes, because that says people are hurting. People are really hurting. And what I say is, first of all, don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. We have to think. This world, our United States is not perfect. It hasn't been for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We thought we got better when Barack Obama was made president. We thought it was better.
Mm-hmm.
We recognize, no, it's not better, okay? And we have to think about our history. Our history, they didn't give up the fight. They did not give up. And they fought for us. Mm-hmm. We are at a point in time where it's better than it was for them. Mm-hmm. And they would want us not to give up the fight, okay? And so we have to think about, how are we going to fight?
Right.
What is the best way for us to fight? Mm-hmm. And so that's when it comes down to that village. When you think about a village, everybody is there to bring forth their best, what they can bring to the village. How can they support the village? So you do have individuals who will say, okay, we still have to pray. And they're like, okay, I'm tired of praying. Right. However, There's so many stories in the Bible where people were saying, I give up,
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired, okay? And God gave them strength.
Mm-hmm.
God came to them and said, okay, I hear your prayers,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to take it another step forward. We still got to fight. And we know now we got a lot of fighting still in us. And that's where we have to pull on. And we have to pull on the support of each other to fight. So you have those individuals that decide, this is the way I want to support. This is how I want to show I'm still not giving up the fight. Okay. So you have individuals that are out there doing peaceful marches. And a lot of them are saying, I'm tired of even doing that.
Right.
Okay? But we have to think back, okay, what works? What works?
Mm-hmm.
And when we think back on what worked, it was hard, but it worked.
Mm-hmm.
We think about now we have more resources, we have more Black lawyers, we have more Black judges, we have more people of color that have money that are saying, I'm throwing money at this. Okay. I am willing to do what I can do. And that's just not people of color. There are many people that are saying, no, we're tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing it, right? And so we don't give up the fight, but we support each other and say, I hear you. I understand how you feel. I understand your frustration. I understand your anger. So I understand those kids and adults out there fighting and setting fires. It's just like, think about Watts. Remember when after Rodney King, Watts happened, people get angry.
Yeah.
And that's how they,
that we have a history here of protesting and raising our voices. So yeah.
Yeah, and we don't stop that.
Right.
We don't stop.
Right.
And vote, you recognize who's supporting Black, who recognizes the oppression still in the communities, who recognizes change needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Change needs to happen all over this world, but change in the United States, we are not the people. We are not presenting ourselves as the people that the world thought we were. Maybe when Barack Obama was president, but right now they're pitying us and they're like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Your people aren't working, and now you're exposing your police brutality. It keeps happening. It keeps happening. That's all over the world. People are seeing that. So they know we're tired and we're tired. But we have to think individually, what can I do right now to support my village? And you did ask the question about how does this stress affect people? How does this
I wanted to know what with the murder, because that's what it was, of George Floyd. It just brings up, it's like a wound that never heals. It's just a little scab that'll grow over it, but then as soon as you scrape it, it's bleeding out. And I just feel that my question to you is, how can African American people begin to heal from the systemic racism and the psychological effects from the systemic racism that has had on our community? Because this has happened for so long, until I feel, I'm almost sad to say that I feel that people have an expectation that there should be no response, if you will. It's almost like our community should not respond to being hit and kicked and shot and things caught on camera. Clearly, I think they just arrested that officer today. Things like that. So it's like the psychological effects of racism and systemic racism having on a race of people. What does that look like? Am I speaking foreign? Is it something that exists?
It does exist, okay? It exists, and there's research out there to support it, okay? And specifically research that has been done here in California and in the Bay Area, looking at the psychological effects of systemic racism in communities. It is done. It's being done. Okay.
And what are those effects?
Okay, so I want to give you this lady's name.
Okay.
She's African American, and she is the Surgeon General actually of California.
Oh.
And she came out of Oakland because she developed this research, and I'm actually not finding her name right now, but she has all of this research, and it was done in Oakland, beginning in Oakland. She's a pediatrician, and so she studied the psychological effects on little kids, and what happens in a community where individuals are consistently bombarded with discrimination and oppression. They develop something called toxic stress. Toxic. Oh, T as in Tom. Toxic stress. Okay? Toxic stress, and this is why it all relates to the fact that we are dying and getting COVID-19 at a higher rate in our Black and Brown communities, because our Black and Brown communities experience more systemic racism and oppression, which results in a lot of trauma, okay, which has the body react in a stress mode and also affects the health of the body, okay? So people have more heart disease, more diabetes, more overweight, asthma. All of these things are because of toxic stress.
Wow.
And so when we look at little kids who are coming into a pediatrician's office and they're in a community of violence, they have seen it or they've experienced it themselves, guess what? Is exhibited in their growth patterns.
Wow.
So yes, when we say, or the statistics say, our Black and Brown communities are dying more often, it's because of those underlying conditions, medical conditions, that develop from toxic stress.
Wow.
Okay. Then we are the people who are out doing the service jobs, most of the low-paying jobs, being exposed. Okay. Before they were telling people to wear masks, getting the virus, being carriers, taking it to other people. And because of those underlying conditions, more difficult for them to fight. Okay. So there is evidence that this oppression takes a toll on everybody. Okay. And so watching that video is traumatic.
Yeah.
I
couldn't watch it to the end. I honestly, I could not watch it to the end because what I saw just broke my heart.
Yes.
And I just couldn't watch it to the end. I just couldn't.
Right. And so it broke your heart. It broke my heart. It makes us angry. And then you have individuals like, I'm angry, I got to do something. I got to get out. I got to do something. And so they're out. And, you know, that's what a lot of people get their anger out and their frustration out by rioting, by setting fires. It's like, I'm getting it out. Okay. And then there's others that they want to do peaceful marching. This is my way. Then you have lawyers, you have legal people like, we need to do something. You know, I think that video, it goes, to me, it goes back to the Rodney King video.
Right.
You know, the outrage. It's just the outrage. And then it keeps happening. And you're right. We keep putting a Band-Aid on it and then we keep pulling it off.
Right.
We put a Band-Aid on and we keep pulling it off. And we as a Black community, we're tired. Okay. And I really strongly believe that all of these things that are happening right now, God is not oblivious, but he is saying, what are y'all going to do as my children? What are y'all going to do? You know?
Interesting. God is saying, what are we going to do?
Right. Okay. I can do my part. Okay. My part is allowing it to be exposed. My part is saying, this has been happening. This cop has been doing this consistently. He needs to be exposed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the outrage of him continuing to do what he was doing while people were filming him.
Right.
That's an outrage.
And what about the other officers that stood by? They're to protect and serve. And if someone is saying, help me,
Yes.
they did nothing. I mean, it was so many levels there of
Right.
oppression
Outrage.
and just,
Yes.
I just could not understand it. And I just couldn't
Right.
go any further with the video.
Right. Right.
It just broke.
And I know I've noticed that they keep showing it, and that's called vicarious trauma. And so I urge people not to continue to watch it. It's something that it just really keeps affecting you too much. You've already seen it. You don't need to see it again.
Okay.
But the outrage from so many levels, like you said, I was waiting for someone in authority to, you know, voice their outrage, and finally the mayor did. And like you said, finally he got arrested. Finally something is being done.
Mm-hmm.
However, we still got work to do.
Right.
You know, just like when with Rodney King in Orange County, I experienced racism in Orange County. I knew it was there.
Mm-hmm.
So there are places that you know when you're going to go as Black people, just like the Green Book years ago, we still have the Green Book.
Mm-hmm.
We still know. So we've come a way, we've come a long way, but you know, if Martin Luther King were alive today and Nelson Mandela were alive today, they both say we still got work to do. And this exposure, we have to think of it as it puts a huge spotlight on what we need to do.
Right.
How we need to gather, how we need to continue the fight. It has not gone away. And the spotlight is all across the world. What are you going to do? As a people, as a nation, what are we going to do? So now the spotlight is on Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it could be on any other county. It could be anywhere happening again. Nobody had a video, but we know it hasn't stopped.
But that's the point. What if there was no video?
Right.
How would this have played out?
Right. And that's my belief, that God allowed a video.
Mm-hmm.
He allowed it because God knew this man needed to be stopped. Mm-hmm. He's done enough damage. These officers in this group, they need to be stopped. And this brutality in this police department needs to be exposed and a light shined on it. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone in the White House that's going to go there like they did when Barack Obama was there, and the Attorney General went to that city and exposed all the racism underlining. We don't have that in place, but we do have other people there. We do have the NAACP, the ACLU, they are there. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do something, you make sure you do what's in your heart. How can I help the fight? Mm-hmm. And everybody can help in their own way. Mm-hmm. Either you support with money, or you support with, you know, calling people to make sure they're safe at this time, that they're not worried about it. You call and make sure you're Black. You talk to your Black boys. I mean, I have 3 brothers. I worry about them.
Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? I don't know.
Well, think about it, Johnny. When we think about our ancestors, mm-hmm. they probably thought the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. When we think about the fact that our ancestors, like I know my great-grandmother, she lived to see her freedom. Mm-hmm. She was a slave. But I wonder at that time, did they think, is there a light? Mm-hmm. And we always have to have hope. Mm-hmm. You know, hope without faith. Yeah. I mean, you got to have hope. Mm-hmm. Hope, it means that you do have your faith. Hope keeps us going, mm-hmm. but we got to fight. We really have to fight. And we are people that have always fought. And we've always come out, and we will keep doing it, and we'll keep doing it because we want a better world for our nieces, our nephews, our grandchildren. We want them to have a better world, just as our parents wanted for us and our grandparents wanted for us. And we have that better world according to their standards.
Okay.
And we're going to have a better world for our kids according to our standards now. That's where we keep up the fight, because they have to live through this and we still have to have the talk. It's unfortunate, but we do what we got to do.
Okay. Standpoint, from a science standpoint, do you think there is, like, can someone that has hate in their heart towards another race, can they be transformed? Is there techniques out there to help them? I mean, I don't know.
People have been transformed from their racist thoughts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evidence. People have written books about it. And people who are past neo-Nazis and
Okay.
expounding white supremacy, they have changed, and they have, I've seen them talk on shows about how their hatred was just so deep, and something just turned them around, and they don't have that hatred anymore. Hatred comes from a lack of self-confidence and a lack of self-esteem. You know, if you think about it, if you like yourself and you have confidence in yourself, you really don't care what other people get. That's their due, right? If you are saying everybody is equal and everybody, if they work hard, they can get what they can get. Well, racism doesn't allow for that. Racism says you don't get what I have. I'm the only one that can have that. Okay. And as Christians, we have to recognize racism for what it is. Okay. It's just a lack of love for other people. Okay. A lack of wanting to be excluding other people because you are afraid they're going to have what you have, or you're going to lose something that you have. And when people understand that everybody is equal, everybody has a brain, and I'm okay with myself, I'm okay with you, then there is no racism. Racism is taught. Okay. Racism can be learned, but you also can unteach it.
Okay.
And you can also unlearn it.
And that's where I was getting at. Because I've always been taught that racism and hatred starts in the home. The kids, you see little kids play with each other. They don't have hate in their hearts. So that's a taught or learned behavior. So can that taught and learned behavior be changed as an adult? That's what I was getting at. Okay.
Yes. And so police officers can also learn not to have a bias. And so psychologists, most police stations, those that are more progressive, I can't say all, have psychologists that will try to teach their officers about implicit bias and explicit bias. And how do you know where you are in that? Okay, so police officers have to learn, they may have implicit bias. Implicit bias means, I believe everybody's equal. I believe everybody is kind and fair and there's no racism in my heart, right? But implicit bias, the greatest example of that was the Central Park incident.
Yeah.
That's implicit bias. Her unconscious thoughts were against this Black man, but she never would have said that. It never would have come out until she was in this situation. And then she recognized, and it came out. And it probably surprised herself. But recognizing that was a shock, and how she treated that dog, that's implicit bias. It's unawareness of my underneath unconscious racism, and it will come out for some people. Explicit bias means I know I'm a racist. I know it, and I'm going to express it. That's the white supremacy, that's the Nazis, that's explicit. Now they can change, But what police officers need to know, do they have implicit bias? When they see a Black kid, are they more apt to think they have a gun when it's a phone, as opposed to a white kid when they reach into their pocket? That's implicit bias.
Okay.
And that's what they have to be taught. And psychologists work with them all the time doing these tests. Most police officers have to go through a psychological test. And if it comes out, usually they don't get hired.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it gets through, depending on the situation, who's doing the test, where they are. But racism can be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's taught, it can be overcome.
Appreciate your time and your knowledge. I know people that's going to be watching the show, they're going to be taking notes. I really appreciate you. Now, if someone wanted to get information here specifically in the Bay Area, maybe they need counseling.
Okay.
They need services, and they don't know,
Yes.
who to reach out to, or maybe they're on a budget and they don't have a whole lot of money. I was wondering, recommend places. Okay.
So if they have insurance, then they can always contact their insurance company. Every insurance company has to offer mental health services. If they don't, if they have lost their insurance, California has set up a statewide mental health toll line. Okay, it's statewide and it's free. And I will give you the number.
Okay.
Okay, it's 1-855
Mm-hmm.
845-7415.
All right.
Okay.
And it's just a statewide
Toll-free mental health hotline for individuals who don't have insurance. They need help right now. And I'm told it's 24 hours.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, we basically live in a pretty good state at some point, sometimes.
Okay. So you guys heard that. And then if you are interested in getting her book, she has a book out. And go ahead and tell them where they can find your book. I don't know where it's located.
Actually, it's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's available on Amazon under the title, Be Happy, Let God Renew the Attitude of Your Mind. And I am the author, a foreword by my pastor, Stanley Long, who is a wonderful man. He's known around the United States for his wisdom. And it's based on the premise of how do you regulate your mood with God's word. Okay, there are Bible verses throughout the book, and it really, what I want people to do is meditate on it. It's not a quick read. It's not something you sit back and say, oh, I'm going to read this over the weekend. No, it's a study. It's a gripping book to say, I want a better relationship with my God.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to have joy with my God.
Mm.
And that will make me happy.
Okay. Well, I'm the first one getting the book. So,
okay.
So y'all got to go out here and support her. Thank you so much, Dr. Thompson, for coming on the show. Be encouraged. Have a wonderful day and be powerful. Go with God.
Yeah. Go with God.
Much.
Thank you. Bye.
All righty. This is In the Mix, everyone. Remember that God loves you and God just wants to use you. Bye-bye.